Building the Beast. For years now, the beast, as mentioned in the book of Revelation, has slowly been being built. We're not quite to the beast yet, but it's drawing ever closer. For years now, there have been legislations being written and signed into law quietly, either passing Congress and the Senate in the middle of the night or being made into law by executive privilege by our current president. These things go unreported to America in the media, so that Americans are not informed or made aware of these policies, these bills, these laws that have been passed. But more than this, other actions have been being brought to pass under the guise of protecting us and watching over us. For instance, cameras are being installed everywhere. Everywhere you look now, at red lights, in stores, in parks, in unsuspected places. And those who put these cameras up tell us they are simply to allow people to view scenic views from the internet, or to prevent crime, or to catch red light runners, or any number of other reasons, which seem logical. But what is the real purpose for these things? Well, of themselves they would seem harmless, maybe even protective of our interests. But when they are added to the laws which have been being written and amended to our Constitution and our state constitutions, it becomes ever more clear that these cameras and methods of monitoring are not just for the sole purpose of protecting us. They're being put in place to watch us. Police cars now are equipped with software that can now identify tag numbers by the hundreds in an instant. In other words, cars passing on the highway, cars sitting in parking lots. All that has to be done is the police car drives by, and instantly every tag number is registered in a database, and they're all checked out. And again, this is with the idea that if there is a stolen car, or a car whose tag's out of date, or what have you, a wanted felon, that they can be caught. We even have things like LoJack, which is a GPS tracking device which is supposed to be able to locate cars when they are stolen. And we have certain insurance companies which now offer plug-in devices for cars which monitor your driving, which monitor the speeds that you drive, and which will reward you for safe driving by getting you a little bit off of your bill. But what else are they for? What else could they be used for? By an ever-growing government which is clearly bent upon removing freedoms, and a government which labels the average everyday American who happens to disagree with them or their policies as subversives or extremists or even radical elements. Yet, the actual radical elements, they pander to. It's amazing. Americans are called radicals, and certain religions, which are full of radical interests, who have come and now have footholds in this country, are not looked at all. Also, everything you do now on the internet is monitored under the guise of marketing, so that specific sites or searches that you do online may direct sales representatives or companies to target you and send you emails because they are aware of what you have searched for. But if you believe this is all innocent and there's nothing else behind it, then you are blissfully unaware to what is going on in our nation and in our world. Again, if you add these things to the new laws which are being instituted and which are going to be law within the next few years, in other words, they will be implemented, you might get a clue as to what is really behind all of this. Our president, even now, is poised to use executive privilege to sign the Internet Control Act, which will allow the president and or the government to pull the plug on the internet for the layperson at any time they so choose. They claim this is necessary for times of emergency. But it will also allow them to further monitor everything that you do online, from comments you make on web pages, to your private emails, to what sites you visit. And this is nothing short of the government taking control and removing the power and the privacy from the people. But the trouble is, people are too busy or too involved in day-to-day life to notice these things. And the media, who are willing partners in this game of takeover and revolution, simply refuse to report these things to the American populace. Because if they did, there would be an uprising of anger. Which is why they keep quiet about all these things. There are quite a lot of things going on in the world that most Americans are completely unaware of. Some of the things you may not be aware of are that recently, under the Navy's new rules, no Bibles or religious artifacts of faith are allowed at Walter Reed Naval Hospital. After months of peeling away at the military's core values, the government's secular army is on the move. And this time they have a high-value prime target: the Bible, the Word of God. Navy officials announced that no religious items, including Bibles, reading materials, and or artifacts such as crucifix, crosses, rosary beads, or items of religious comfort, are allowed to be given away or used during a visit. The new orders were buried in a 4-page document about patient care, which an Army officer found and forwarded to several conservative websites in his disbelief. The document stated, effective immediately, families and friends and even pastors will have to check their beliefs at the door to visit in one of the largest military hospitals in the United States. After certain conservative websites circulated this news to our leaders on Capitol Hill, an outraged representative, Steve King, a Republican of Iowa, took to the floor of the House and blasted the policy. Representative King said, "Mr. Speaker, these military men and women who are recovering at Walter Reed and Bethesda have given their all for America. They have defended and taken an oath to the Constitution. And here they are. And the people who come to visit them can't bring a religious artifact. They can't bring a Bible. A priest can't walk in with the Eucharist or to offer communion to a patient who might be on their deathbed because it is prohibited in this memo by the Department of the Navy." No doubt, you didn't hear this or see it on the television because the media didn't feel it was worth reporting. But this policy is definitely anti-Christian. And it's in stark contrast and a double standard to this modern left-wing government's military policies, which celebrate homosexuality, where Christianity is censored, where witches of Wicca are financed, where crosses are scorned, where transgender lifestyles are now being embraced, and Bibles are banned, where same-sex weddings are encouraged, but international charity is not. After 3 years of ideological warfare, this current administration's intent is clear: to disarm the military of its biggest weapon, our God, and our faith in Him. Regardless of this agenda, there is absolutely nothing in the Constitution that empowers the government to stop family members from giving Bibles or crosses or any religious artifact to their loved ones. I'm not sure that this is the best way for a president to get his approval ratings up, except amongst his leftist cohorts. By denying comfort to wounded warriors, he is clearly making a statement. Unfortunately, our troops, who have endured so much and given so much for our country, and seeing great turmoil under this current administration, are the ones under attack. Hopefully, with the help of Congressman King and others, this measure is only a temporary one. But I seriously doubt it. Why do you think there has been such a movement over the last few years to include gays and lesbians in the military? It isn't just for equality. No, indeed. It is to fill the military with those of the same ideological background as those of the left wing. Those who will blindly follow a leftist leadership. And if you have not heard about this, I'm not shocked. Again, the media is not reporting it. nor do they care, because the media is in full support of such secular ideology, save of a few stations. If you cannot see what's going on here with all of these new agendas and policies, then all I have to say is, what rock are you living under? Do you know that now our military is the smallest that it has been since the 1950s, due to the cuts put in place by this current administration? Do you know that also, a year ago or so, China firmly suggested to the United States that we should defund and shrink our military? And now it's coming to pass. Gee, I wonder why a communist nation, which owns a great deal of America, even the majority of our once beloved General Motors, which we the American taxpayers were forced to bail out, I wonder why this communist nation would want us to shrink our military while they build theirs up further. And speaking of this, with all the turmoil that's going on right now in the world, with the uprisings in the Islamic world, how about all the funding, the billions of dollars the United States is giving to the Arab nations which hate us? Rich Arab nations. Don't you feel great knowing the Arab Spring, which so many in this nation supported because they thought it would bring peace and stability to the Middle East, is now showing its true colors as they kill off our representatives and our soldiers and burn our flag in those Arab nations? And what's really sickening is that our soldiers were armed with rubber bullets to defend themselves. You know, I really would like to know who the colossal, glittering moron who decided that our troops should load their weapons with rubber bullets was, in a country, or in all of these countries full of radicals who have, on camera, cut the heads off journalists, who stone and kill women, who drag American soldiers' bodies through the streets and urinate on them. Who was the glittering moron who decided that it's a good policy to give our soldiers rubber bullets? You know, most of the American populace does not know about this. And do you know why they don't know about it? Because the media is not telling anyone about it. It's not being reported in the papers or magazines or on the television. So we think our fighting forces are over there well equipped, when the ones standing guard over our embassies are armed with rubber bullets, which amount to being shot with something a little larger than a pencil eraser, which may indeed be painful. But I want you to consider that while we're firing at them with rubber bullets, they're firing at us with live ammunition machine guns, with rocket-propelled grenades. Does this seem even remotely fair? Does this seem like the government that is controlling our military has got an agenda of their own? Because nobody in their right mind could expect this to be allowed. First of all, like I said, they don't know about it. And not only that, we're funding these people. America is in such decline right now with our $15 trillion debt, which is estimated to be $21 trillion by the year 2016. And we're sending money to the Arab nations, which we already have to buy expensive oil from. Nations that hate us and burn our flag and burn effigies of our Savior. But you know, this is not the first time this has happened. Before World War II, Japan was buying iron and metals like aluminum and steel from the United States, which at the time seemed to be a good thing. But do you know what Japan built with that American ore which came out of the mines of America? That American metal? They built battleships. They built aircraft carriers. They built submarines. They built airplanes. They built assault weapons. And we even helped them with the design of these things. And guess what they did with all those weapons of war? They attacked us with them. The USS Arizona, lying on the bottom of Pearl Harbor with her crew still aboard her, even now, is a testament to their achievement and to our stupidity. And now history is repeating itself. The nations we helped, the nations we have funded, the nations who we liberated from their fascist regimes have now turned on us. Even in Europe and Australia, Muslims have attacked members of those nations during protests against America, under the guise of being enraged over a film clip on YouTube that they claim insults the Prophet Muhammad. These people are not outraged because of their prophet being insulted. They're not outraged over this film clip. This is a long-standing hatred. They were looking for an excuse to wreak havoc, and they found a small reason which was big enough for them to attack our embassies in 9 Arab countries and 2 non-Arab countries, Britain and Australia. And Americans have been so removed from common sense and truth till many of our own youth feel these Muslims are justified. Because our youth have been brainwashed with the idea that America is nothing but a big bully nation. They believe the rewritten history as authored by radicals who hate America. And they don't believe the truth. No nation on earth has liberated more nations than the United States of America. No nation on earth has given freedom to so many as the United States of America. But some of these Muslims do not want freedom and democracy. And I say some because you cannot lump all into one basket. There are peaceful Muslims who know the true message of the Quran and of the Bible. And they are not deceived by the wiles of radical groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, and a host of other radical groups who don't want peace. They want jihad and blood. And yet here we are, the United States, with millions out of work, our economy in terrible shape, and we're sending our money overseas. And the same thing is done with the money we're sending to China. Everything is being turned upside down from the way it had been. And everything is being undone from within, not from without or from afar. Our country's new policies punish achievement and reward laziness and forward dependency. And why? Because it is the agenda. The agenda to ruin America and all that America stands for. The agenda to destroy capitalism and to burden us with debt we will never be able to pay off should the world hold together for many more generations. The agenda to keep us from using our own natural resources and keep us dependent upon nations which hate us and hate our freedoms and liberties to supply us with fuel and goods. Do you know that virtually everything you buy in American stores is made overseas? That benefits them, not us. It takes money from our nation and puts it in the pockets of those nations who would love to someday, not so far off, take us down and take us over. Now we know that one world government is prophesied to happen in the Bible, in our Father's Word. But that does not mean we have to lay down like timid sheep and be communized. Yet that is exactly what is happening to us due to the average, everyday, ignorant to truth, uninformed American who has no knowledge of these things. And this agenda is very real. It is not some conspiracy theory or some idle threat. It is all too real. Just look at the unnecessary bureaucracy that we have to go through, that we have to tolerate, I should say, to get anything done in this nation, from getting a license, to starting a business, to seeing a doctor. This bureaucracy is purposeful. It is not to make things more efficient. It is to make things harder. It is to complicate life and to burden us further. It is to keep us busy so that we don't take note of the things which are happening right before our very eyes, right in our presence. You know, recently it was reported by the media that the iPad, the lovely iPad, could of itself help to turn the American economy around. Really? And how is that? After all, the iPad is made in China. All the parts for the iPad are made in China. All the silica and electronics are made in China. And 90% of electronic gadgets are made in America, or in Indonesia, or in other places. So just how is that going to help America? By putting money in the pockets of the Chinese? Are you for real? You know, sometimes I think the media feels that Americans are so stupid till they could tell them anything and they would believe it. And in some cases, I guess that's a little bit true. But this idea that the iPad or these other gadgets are going to help America are about as true as the promises made years ago by our current president concerning all the stimulus money that he and his administration spent, or I should say wasted, for green energy jobs to companies which have since gone bankrupt and are now out of business completely. or all the promises he made of cutting the budget in half in his first term. In other words, it's all empty rhetoric. It's all paper promises, which have not been fulfilled because they could not be fulfilled. And they knew it when they made those transparent promises. They would say or do anything to get elected. And I will tell you this: any president or political party or government official or officials which stand against God at virtually every turn through their own words and policies, that is, unless they want to be seen on camera to look religious for the benefit of the camera and the media, is doomed to fail miserably. Because God is not a God who prospers lies, liars, or deception. He is a God who reveals those deceptions to those who open their eyes and look and just don't blindly believe everything they see on TV or that the media tells them is the truth. You know, when we see things going on in this country, when criminals are praised and elevated as victims and given more rights and attention than real victims or the law-abiding citizens, we know that something is wrong. When children are taught that God is a fable for religious freaks and that science is the only real truth in the world, we know that we are in decline. When truth is overcome by lies for a bribe or political reasons, we know the sorrows Jesus Christ himself spoke of are upon us. And I realize that I have to sound like a skipping broken record in these Bible studies and these commentaries as I say the same things over and over and over again in warning. But you put the pieces together. You do the math. And tell me, do you think all of this is innocent? Is this just a step forward in technology, or is it the beginning of something bigger, such as happened in Russia as she became the USSR, or as happened in pre-World War II Germany as she became the Nazi socialist Mecca, and during World War II, or even in places like Cuba or North Korea? It's always the same pattern. It's always done the same way. All the information outlets are taken over. The people are dumbed down. Everything right is made out to be wrong, and everything wrong is made out to be right, or justified, or rationalized. Policies and laws are made which are unfair. And people are burdened to death with taxation or promised better things for their vote. And as we draw the lines in the sand here on this, what happens, or who takes notice, I should say, when the majority of the voting base of a single political party is made up of atheists, science deifying professors and teachers, strong-arming union thugs, community activist groups which have anything but equality and fairness on their minds, gays and lesbians and transgender lifestylers, angry brainwashed youth who have been brainwashed with secular ideology and have been told what to be mad about and to go protest about, and illegal voters which are not discouraged but rather are pandered to and encouraged to vote. not only to vote illegally, but to, when they do vote, vote for socialistic policies or socialists to put them into office. Basically, this whole group is made up of the faithless, or those who are willing to trade their faith and their values to be pandered to. That is, of course, except for some of those of the faith of Islam who have now aligned themselves with the left side of the aisle. They have faith, and their faith is accepted. Did anyone happen to see what happened at the Democratic National Convention when the words God-given and Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Israel were voted upon? It took 3 calls for the vote, in which those in favor seemed to be outnumbered by those who were not in favor of putting the words God-given and Jerusalem as the capital of Israel back into the platform. However, unless you saw this live or you saw it reported on something like the Fox News channel or various other conservative outlets, you didn't see that version. If you saw what was reported on things like AOL or Yahoo or MSNBC or NBC or ABC or CBS or any of other number of big news stations, CNN, then you would have gotten the impression that the Democrats had overwhelmingly voted to put these words back in simply one vote, because the video had been censored to show only one call for the vote. It was censored to make it look as though this was an easy vote and an easy victory for God and Israel amongst the Democrats. But it was anything but. And also censored out of this video were the boos, catcalls, and hisses by the secularists and by the Islamics who were in attendance at this Democratic National Convention, who were angry that those words were put back. It's just more of the same old propaganda that we have been seeing or have seen building for years in this revised and redone Democratic Party, which is no longer what it once was. Because once Democrats were not appalled by the name or the mention of God or prayer or the Bible. But the new progressives who have crept in and taken over the party, which are farther left and more hardline than ever before, are at war with God. They're at war with Christianity. They're at war with any religion except a religion that will support them, such as Islam. Or I should say, such as the radical factions of Islam. Everything that we have known is turning over upside down. As I've said in previous commentaries and even in my Bible studies, sometimes it is hard for me to believe that this is the country that I was born in. Because now everything that is wrong is raised up on a pedestal, and everything that is right is slammed to the ground face first. And truth is nowhere to be found, or it's rarely found. And when someone dares to speak it, they are labeled as a hater, a bigot, a racist. Anyway, this has just been another short commentary and rant on my part, to blow off some steam and to sound the warning to those of you that listen. I prefer doing the Bible studies, but every now and again I like to take time and do these commentaries because I really don't want to interrupt the Bible studies with adding all these things in commentary, but I feel that Americans should be made aware of this, and I realize that probably not that many will hear these. But then again, maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. Because the truth has always been a precious commodity, and those who spoke it have always been outnumbered. Look what the world even did to Jesus Christ himself when he spoke the truth. To John the Baptist. To Paul. To Peter. To all the apostles. To all the prophets. They've always been ridiculed. They've always been ridiculed in Cain's jealousy. And if you'll go back to the beginning of all of this, and follow the money trail, and follow the commerce, and follow the power structure, at the head of this game, you'll find the descendants of Cain. At any rate, as always, friends and listeners, it is my prayer for you that you will be awake to these facts. That you will be aware of these things. And that you will stay cloaked in the gospel armor of our Father. That you will study His Word to gird yourself up in that gospel armor. So that when this beast roars to life, this beast that's being built, you won't be a partaker with them. And I say them because this beast is not just a beast, it is a them. My question is, how many of you will stand for God or with God? How many of you will stand up for the things that we hold to and believe to our deepest inner parts? And how many of you will just stay quiet and say, well, I don't know about all this. It sounds like conspiracy, or I don't really think this is going to happen. You'll believe it when it does happen. At any rate, I hope you will open your ears and tune in and start paying attention to what's going on in the world and start checking out some of the conservative sites. And keep yourself apprised of what's really going on, because the media sure won't tell you. Thank you for listening. This has been Just Thoughts.